G'day and welcome to the Making It the Myles podcast. There is two formats of this podcast. First one is The Shed, which is where we discuss all things about building, construction and the real estate industry through the lens of a building inspector. And outside of that, we also double in a little bit of personal development because if we all get better, the world gets better. And at the moment, the world is fucking shit hole. So on this podcast, we have a couple of guests from X Tour 3D. We've got Mark and Luke who are joining us in the beloved studio.
Hey, mate.
We're going to get straight into it. First things first, I'm going to go to Mark. Tell us about your background, mate.
Background. I'll make this as short as possible.
Yes, sir.
Plumbing was my original background. 15 years doing plumbing. Found an opportunity, changed, and started creating something. And that's where I am now.
Why'd you choose plumbing?
It's actually my dad. He said, you need to get a job. And my cousin at the time was plumbing. And he said, why don't you try that? So I just got into it. And then that was it. Didn't have a choice. When you're young, you don't know. Like, I had no idea what I really wanted to do.
Yeah.
Travelled and then came back and was like, yeah, got into it. I was good at it. It worked for me. So
How far did it
go?
Great
question.
Did you end up running your own crew?
I did.
On site or what?
Started my own business. Built that up. Ended up managing about 15 guys. That was chaotic because you do less plumbing and more like people management.
Yep.
Which is difficult. And then, yeah, just kind of ran it up and then let it fizzle down until I couldn't handle it anymore.
Yeah.
Just wanted to change.
Jump ship and change things and come up with ideas and escape the matrix.
Yeah, it's not really much of a career. I think the later stages are more exciting, but, yeah, that's how I kind of started in the building industry in general. So
Sweet. All right. What about you, Luke? What's your story?
I was a commercial project manager for a Tier 3 builder for 10 years. And then that's pretty much it. And then Mark sucked me into coming out and doing this. So we sort of just formed that and went for it. So, went to uni, did a Bachelor of Construction Management, and then just rolled straight into working, which was fun. So
Start off as a CA and work your way up to the PM role?
Started as a PC, went to the CA, went through all the different gates, which was fun, learning all the pieces. Yeah. But it was definitely... it was a big learning curve at the start, which is great. So just get thrust out onto the site and they're like, figure it out, mate, you'll be fine. And you're standing there going like, I don't know any of this. Like, what am I talking about?
It's so fucked.
It's man, it's intense.
It's chaotic.
It's amazing. Yeah. Like, even the simplest of things. I remember ordering the doors. They're like, order the doors. And I'm like, okay, I'll just order some doors. And they were like, did you think of this and this and this? I was like, doors aren't that fucking hard. It's a door. Like, surely it's easy. Doors are so difficult. But you just have no appreciation for that until you're actually thrown in that environment.
Yeah.
So it was good. Just sponged it for like 3 years, learned as much as I could, and then sort of just worked up to that point of being the PM, which was fun.
Mate, the biggest thing for me when I went to commercial construction is like when I went from being a chippy on the tools, Albert Park, swinging hammers, doing cool shit like that, then I went into like the biggest project that Kane had at the time, $150 million hospital. Fucking speed of construction freaked me out, mate. Like how quick... Floor, boom, everyone's coming through, and then trying to manage all that.
It's amazing.
It's fucking loose.
You end up just talking about programming and cycle times and all that sort of stuff as opposed to being like, are we actually thinking about the construction? Like, just get it done. Just move to the next level, sheet it, let's go.
Yeah.
Which is fun, but after a while, you're just like, all I'm doing is just constantly trying to just cycle this thing. So,
and yell at people.
Yeah. He knows. I love yelling at people. It's my favourite bit.
Oh, the yelling on site. I mean, I did commercial plumbing. That was one of the first things I went into. And that was wild, just the shit talk on site. But how quick it builds is crazy. Oh. It hasn't changed a bit.
No, it hasn't changed.
Now, from when I started, it's just go.
Yeah.
And it's non-stop. And then you think, like even when you drive past a building, you're like, oh, yeah, it looks like it's been building for a while, but they've gone up 5-6 levels. And the next thing you know, it's done. You're like, it's finished. It's open. They've opened the doors. You're like, they just built a whole building.
But even in like what we do, we can see it such from a resi and a commercial space. The resi guys will call you like every 6 months, and the commercial guys are like, we'll see you next week. Yeah. And you're like, okay, you got another level on? They're like, another level next week. And the resi guys are like, see you in a couple of months. We'll see how we're going.
Yeah.
What the hell's going on here?
There's like two months between slab pours. You're like, well, what have you been doing for 2 months?
That's exactly right. The resi guys are just hanging out, just cruising around. And
it's a completely different style of building.
Yeah.
What I really did like about commercial, though, is more or less the structure that everything was in place. Like everyone, there was rock and rolls that people played, and you just did your role. And then safety, obviously, is massive. Yeah. So that was always a big tick, where, like, when you're in Albert Park and you've just built a couple of sticks and you got some planks out and you're like fucking nailing off this dodgy shit. And you're like, when I went to commercial, I was like, what, I can't use an A-frame ladder. I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? Platform ladders, mate.
There's a reason why someone slipped off one of those once, and they're like, no more.
Wait, how often we go past the site and you look at a guy and you're like, he's like hanging off the side of the ladder like this, painting something, and you're like, man, come on, like seriously, give it a crack. Like,
or they're on a scissor and they're like outside of the building envelope, just like painting the facade. And you're like, I guess that is technically the safest thing to do.
But they're trying to build such crazy stuff as well, and they're putting like obviously the best way to build is just a square box.
Yeah,
but they're not designing them to be a square box. So everything's so like it's. I reckon every side there's something new that happens where it's like we've really never done this before, so they have to figure it out as well.
Yeah,
so a lot
and trying to tick the box for the designers and the architects who have these crazy ideas, and the engineers are pushing back on it, saying it's all too hard.
Yeah,
and then you sit there as a builder and you're like, you look at it, you're like, nah, I reckon, it should be right. Yeah, we can make it work. And it's just problem solving, which as men we'd kind of fucking froth, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly.
It's good fun.
That is the best part, I reckon. That was my favourite part, was the problem solving bit that went with that. Because there'd be so many times you'd walk out and a plumber would come up to you and be like, what do I do here? And I'm like, I'm not a plumber, how the fuck would I know? But I'm like, all right, let's try and figure it out.
But if I was a plumber?
if I was, oh, come on, mate, he's a plumber, so we should be sweet. I'm like, well, what are you doing here? But it was just cool to be able to like help like problem solve through those processes and like, you know, go through that with them. It was really exciting. And then you're like, shit, we did that. How good was that? Well done.
It's fucking sweet. And like, from the management side perspective yourself, Luke, is that you get this good like overview of all these cool shit that happens. Probably from a project manager's. Did you do site management or just go through the sort of the project management?
No, I stayed predominantly in the project management.
In the office side. Yeah. So even as a project manager, you still got to obviously run a program, all sort of stuff, make sure things are working as accordingly, and everyone's doing all their shit, all the lead times and things like that is actually working correctly. But that whole process of just getting that crew together, working together, and when the subbies are on board and they've got enough labour because their bosses aren't fuckwits, you can actually do fucking awesome shit.
It makes a difference. Like, it makes a huge difference. When you get buy-in from everybody and everybody's on the same page and everyone's working collectively, it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it's rare, but it does sometimes occur.
But I think like the basis is like my favourite, literally my favourite part of construction is at the start you walk out and you're like, it's just a pile of dirt there. Like, there's nothing there. And at the end, like 12, 18, 24 months later, you walk out and you're like, look at that building. Like, we did that. How good's that?
Yeah,
Boys, built that building.
It's when you drive past it.
You know what I mean?
Like,
it's
your girlfriend or your wife, you're like, I built that.
A sense of real achievement.
Exactly
like,
right.
And I still do that today. I'll drive past, I'll be like, I worked there. I fixed that. Like, you
that was a fucking shit job.
Yeah. I remember that one, yeah.
Ooh, glad I'm not going there anymore.
That's some shockers.
One of my favourite, my most favourite story for that is when I was working at Kane, T.I., the managing director at the time, he set me up on this job called M Pavilion, which is a temporary structure they build in Queen Victoria Gardens. Yeah. And I was the only site manager. It was just me. Like, I put on with an architect from India, and we built this fucking bamboo thing in the middle of the city. Yeah. And I'm talking like 2 bits of bamboo together with a dowel through it, some cable ties, and then wrapped in rope. And we built this fucking sick structure.
That's cool.
Like, you know, it was done. It's a temporary thing. It's there for like a month or something like that. You know, show your parents. That's fucking pretty cool. And then what they do is they relocate it and they put it in somewhere else. And it went to the Melbourne Zoo. So in the like playground area, there's like this fucking cool. bamboo structure there.
And it's yours.
And it's my baby. So every
I
time I see mates that are at the zoo, I'm like, wait, check it. Look at my bamboo.
I actually thought about going to the zoo not long ago, so I'll have to look out for it.
We'll check it out.
I'm like, I know the guy that, they're going to be like, I know the guy that
It's me, but I know him.
Podcast with him. Yeah. It goes
all right, sweet. So, cool background. It sounds like you know a bit about construction, which is fantastic. Now, I came across X-Tour 3D because I posted a video and you commented on one of the videos saying, we solved that problem.
Yes.
And when I looked into it, I was like, because I knew this was a business idea that I've had before, knowing how fucking important it is. Because like the old way for me to do it, it's in commercial, we'd use A-Connects, have a room, north wall, east, south, west, and it'd be void closures, take all the pictures, then we can refer back to it later, scan it in, all that sort of shit. When I saw what you guys do, I was like, holy fucking shit. Now, how did this X-Tour 3D, oh, actually, first things first, give us a basic overview of what it actually does.
It provides, I guess, an easier way to access vital information that everyone takes from their phone. Like, the way this started was I used to have to go back to my phone all the time and look up past jobs.
Yep.
The first problem I had was finding the photos. The second problem I had was hoping that one of those photos had the information that I needed to find. And every time it was either a photo just a bit too far to the left or a bit too far to the right, or I only had 2 or 3 and didn't have the 4th photo that I really needed to do it. Yep. And then having just the full view of the room, because you don't know where. I never knew where the problem was going to come from. Usually, if there's a water leak in a ceiling, it's not really where it's leaking from; it's from somewhere else.
Yep.
And I need to know what's up there, so I need to see the whole room to get an idea. And that's kind of how it started. So when I found the technology, I was working on a property, and we were looking at ways to take a photo, and then 3, virtual walkthroughs just seemed like the best way to do it.
To expand on that, to be very clear, X2 3D is a company that goes around, you do 3D imaging of certain stages of construction, from my understanding, and then that is put into a model that you provide for obviously the clients and all those types of things, and people can access specific areas of those models. How far does the software go? Like, to what extent can you do it? Can you actually get like dimensions off the wall as to like certain heights of things and things like that?
Yeah, so we go through, to go back to your point from before, we come through, so it's basically a QA process in essence, yeah? So we're helping to consolidate all the important data. Like you said, all the photos on your phone that you've taken or the walls and everything else, consolidate into one place. A lot of the time, someone will come up to you and go, hey, have you got a photo of that room? Like, I think Gary's got it on his phone, or I think Steve's got it, or I think it's on Procore somewhere, and it's just a mess.
Yep.
Working in commercial space, it was always like, no one ever had quick, easy access to that data. So we want to try and consolidate that into one place at certain milestone stages, like you said, whether it's pre-construction, whether it's DLAPs at the front end, whether it's whether it's pre-slabs, pre-plasters, and we tried to line it up with the key milestone stages throughout the construction process. There's no point coming back and seeing the same wall 3 or 4 or 5 times and they've put an extra pipe in. You're like, who cares?
Yeah.
Like, let's have that real, because in construction, there's a hard milestone date. Pre-plaster is a real date in the scheme of things. In the program, stop. We've got a whole date here. Let's go and do our due diligence and make sure everything's ready. So we chose those as those sort of key milestone times and said, look, let's just focus on those points throughout the process. And then, like you were saying, adopted a technology basically that allows us to go in, like you said, measure things, high resolution imagery so you can actually see what you're looking at, multiple points, and you can actually get a feel for what's there.
When you guys go into the room, because I want to get like really, because I didn't look too much into it, to be honest.
Yeah.
When you're in the room and you're like going through this model or whatever, you guys punch out at the back end, right?
Yep.
So, like for example, we do gets sheeted, all sort of stuff, and we're looking right what's behind the wall. Can you pinpoint areas and dimensions?
So the hardware we use has a LiDAR on it.
Yep.
So just like the surveyors use, it's got a LiDAR. So what it's actually doing in the background is doing all these measurements.
Yes.
So it takes about 200,000, points per second.
Yep.
So it's completely measuring up that space in real time. And essentially what it does is it matches the photo with your point cloud.
Yeah, that's
so your point cloud is all your measurements.
Yeah.
There is a slight running error.
Yes.
So there's a little... you would say within, was it 10
mil.
10 mil. So it's within 10 mil, which we feel like is okay.
It's as close as fucking swearing.
Exactly.
That's great.
So yeah, to your point though, you can measure up, anything you want with inside the tour.
With the software itself, can you scale that up so you can bring that tolerance down?
Yes.
You can with...
There's a scenario that I think would be fucking awesome for that, which would be post-pour slab.
Yeah.
And getting heights.
We're using a specific type of hardware.
Yep.
We know there's obviously your Leicas and all that sort of stuff that are going down to that 2 mil, 1 mil tolerance ultimately.
Yep.
We specifically chose to stay away from that level of accuracy.
Yes.
We're not chasing engineers.
Yeah.
Like, we're not chasing like to the mil tolerances here. We're not surveyors.
Yes, correct. That's what I was going to say. So you've found the line. We'll leave that to the surveyors, and then we'll stick to what we're doing over here, which is
we can
very
get
valuable.
that for you.
We can,
yeah.
But our thing was we predominantly chose to stay in this side. We can go out and we can collect using that same data capture process. It takes a lot longer though from our perspective as well. So in order for us to make it competitively priced, we want to be able to get in, get out relatively quickly. So the hardware we use scans quickly, gets all the info that we need, and we get out of there quick.
It's fair enough. And it saves you competing with surveyors.
Well, correct.
Because like I'll get surveyors on my jobs. I'm like, can you scan the slab?
Yep.
And then I want you to overlay it onto the fucking plans because I want to see what's going to be fucked because it happened all the time, especially when you're dealing with like joinery and all those types of people. Things like lifting down rather than just putting the door in. And then all of a sudden all the doors are different heights and there's meant to be this one perfectly done shadow line.
Yeah. We've got 20 mil over here.
Yeah. Oh, man.
And that's what we think
hard.
We complement that though at the same time because we'll come through pre-slab and capture what's there.
Yeah.
So if you got to core a hole for your sink because it's in the wrong spot, The surveyor's going to like scan the slab. Like, we've already got it. We can measure off the column point and know exactly where that, is there a PT tendon there?
Yes.
Or what are we working with? And then your surveyor can do his flatness or his levelness analysis as well.
I think for commercial, that's probably one of the biggest ones.
Yeah.
Because the amount of hole calls we've done, and then the whole call procedure. You're like, all right, scan the slab. You do a pre-drill. You keep going through, all that sort of stuff.
And it could be something simple where you just needed to know. That's it. And you don't need to get a scanner out just to know this thing. Or you already knew, but you just want to double check.
Yep.
You can just double check and say, we're definitely fine.
A retrospective investigation by a structural engineer. Hey, we want to cut a big peno here. Can we do it? He's like, well, what do the bars look like around that? Or what are we working with?
Yeah.
Can we retrospectively review that and try and sign that off or have a better understanding of what's there as opposed to waiting 2 months or we mess around trying to figure out what's actually there?
Yeah.
It's also accessing that information quickly. So within a second, you can have it on your phone and look at it right then and there.
Yeah.
So there's no searching, there's no looking, there's
no delays.
There's no delays. There's no, hey, I'll get back to you, or I'll send an email and then we'll go from there. And it's a 2-week process to figure this out.
Yep.
You can instantly look and go, oh, no, we can't do this. Or, yes, we can do this. Now let's move forward straight away.
Yep.
The quickness is what I like. I need to know information now. I don't need to know it tomorrow. It doesn't help me tomorrow.
Yep.
So if I can find that stuff now and make a decision, I think that's better in construction as a whole.
Oh, 100%. And
Because-
especially for commercial and then subcontractors. Because the subcontractor is going to be, they
Charge by the
have
hour.
to follow the rules.
Yeah.
And then if you have a product like this, they can be like, all right, we need to do this, this, and this, and this. What's going on? All right, now they have to engage a person to go through the process. You might have to cut some holes or drill some bits and pieces and that sort of shit. And it just fucking takes ages. And it wastes their time, which is a pain in the ass. So if you can solve the problems for a lot of everyone, really, then moving forward, it's just great. And then at the back end, you end up with this staged 3D model of the whole entire construction of a building, which for future is fantastic information that you can pass on to the client, that when they start doing renovations or they want to do things or they want to modify bits and pieces, add new furniture, add new cabinets. Like we were talking about before, like I was working in the hospital, like you're going to add a cabinet into a hospital, you've got multiple gases running through there, hit that, you're in strife.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's multiple types of electrical feeds running through as well. Danger.
Yep.
It's just
Well, hospitals are a prime example because they're forever changing. So hospitals are consistently going through renovations and upgrading, and they're consistently moving and shifting, wards to change or to, be bigger, or they'll move a lot of stuff and they'll change a lot of stuff because they have to. And having the information will help that go quicker.
I think the big part, like especially when they get new equipment, like when I was in the hospital and the
Upgrades.
footing system for the equipment was a whole thing. Like had to be designed for
you
the
don't
space.
realise how heavy that sort of stuff is.
Oh,
like, the
dude,
MRI machine, it's like 8 tons. You're like, what?
And that slab's just so much thicker in just that one area.
So there's areas that can specifically go or it will not meet the design.
Yeah.
I got to play around that shit too. It was fucking cool. I was like $1 million these like 6 CT scan things. Fucking remote controlling and moving it around because I had some defects I had to fix above it.
Oh, of course,
Just climb in, you're like, I'm just going to have a quick look at it.
Because I was like the defects bitch at the time. So I was like, had all these defects. I'm like, you know what? If I just do it myself, I don't have to get the fucking...
What's the process on defects? Like, were you part of the project or did you get handed over to the defect team?
No. So, because I was with Kane, because they weren't like tier 1, tier 1 you have a person for every like role.
Yeah.
Right. So Kane is tier 2, I guess. Yeah. And so my role pretty much was, I would just get certain areas. So I'd be like, all right, you're gonna do
manage
this level, and it's just like the rooms, something simple like that. And then I'm fighting the other site managers to get trades to come to my rooms to do their works and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I learned a lot about the QA procedures and stuff like that, which I did for Epworth, and I did the QA procedures for every single ensuite, and built a QA system, built the charts, all that sort of stuff, made it fucking schmicko.
You like that,
Oh, mate, nailed it. It was fucking great. For, like, the first level we did, we had, who was there? Fuck, I forget his name. It was Carl Stanmore. Fucking funny cunt. Loved it. Anyway, we did, like, one level of bathrooms, and I came back through and I put the level on the floor and, like, the falls weren't correct. There's very specific rules you've got to work with, like the rooms 1 to 100, 1 to 40. And because of the shape, it's just very difficult to get it right. And he's like, it's no good. I'm like, mate, this is, like, I checked it. It's fucked. Okay, well, I need to put a QA procedure because you have to demolish every single fucking bathroom. We just did.
Yeah.
So it was like 15 bathrooms. I had to
Jeez.
knock them all up. I'm like, all right, now moving forward, this is what we're doing. And he's like, yeah right, sweet.
Yeah.
And we nailed it every time.
And you're right, though. That's a big thing. Commercials, just like there's procedures and there's processes, and that's what drives a lot of that sort of efficiency and that speed at the same time.
100%.
As long as you're ticking the boxes and following everything goes okay. If you're just like, it'll be fine.
It does work when you've got a plan.
On the big scale, it works really well. And then obviously there's all these like tumors and shit that comes along the process where you're like, all right, this is occurring.
Yeah.
How do we solve this problem?
Yeah.
But if this is a well-oiled machine, you're not battling too much with it. It's all right. But this stuff, it's just the normal day-to-day problem solving, really. With X2R, 3D, give me some of the case studies. What are the successful stories that you've actually come across? Have you solved some problems for small builders, commercial? Like, what are some cool stories you've actually come out of this?
They vary, and we do actually hear them more often than not. Surprisingly, it takes someone to kind of have it first and then figure out later on. Like, I explained it today. I said it's something that they want, and then it turns into something they need because they use it once and it gets them out of the shit.
Yes.
And they're like, oh, wow, this is actually useful. So, I mean, the most recent one was a water leak in a ceiling for a display suite. And as soon as they hadn't connected the recycled line, and it just burst open and started flooding with the plaster. So they shut it off, and they're like, what happened?
Yeah.
Straight away to the tour, found it, knew exactly where it was. So although, yes, they've got water leaks coming out now, but they've been able to find it, identify it, and fix it straight away. And the excuse was, maybe something wasn't crimped, but it's like wasn't connected at all. So So you've got a trade that goes, this is not us, but then you can clearly see it was them. So they now go, no worries, we'll fix it, we'll do the repairs because we know it's our fault. So instantly you've got a result on how to fix it, whose fault it was. So they've taken ownership because the proof is there, and then it's resolved. So for the builder, it was quick. So there's no longer this argument. There's not a fight between trades.
For what?
Or what was it? Or someone put a screw through it. It's like, no, we can see clearly what's happened, and then they're able to find it. So that was the most recent one. I mean, that's a major one, we think. But then there's been tons of examples of just small things. Like, we needed to find one cable. We lost the cable, and they found it.
That would be a big one, especially when you're terminating everything.
Especially we find them towards handover too, on handover. They're handing the property over, and they're like, hold on, where's the smoke alarm? And then they look back through the tour, they find it, like, we missed it right here. Boom, get it. So there's little ones and there's big ones. But yeah, the best thing is seeing our clients be like, it just made them feel easy. Like, we had the information.
Yes.
But it is hard to get feedback sometimes because no one wants to tell you what went wrong.
I think what's interesting is at the start, we were very sort of after the fact. It was a very sort of, all right, cool, you've got it. If you do need it, when something goes wrong, you can go back and check it.
Yeah.
So it was a retrospective sort of tool more so. And now we issue QR codes with every model that we do. So we'll give you a QR code bespoke to the actual model itself. You stick it on the wall. Any subby who walks past can scan it, pops open in their phone. So straight in their browser, they've got access. No logins, no sign-ups, anything like that.
That's fucking...
So the big thing for us was it's just created an efficiency during the construction. So it's not just a retrospective conversation now. Now it's like anyone who comes on the site, tell them to scan it. If you've got a sparky who can't find a wire, go and look there. If you've got a plumber who's fitting something off, hey, check what height it was. What height are my nogs? So you've got an ability to now streamline and create more efficiencies at the front end through your construction as opposed to that retrospective review. And that's how we found it to be really, really effective and get good feedback from the trades because we get Sparkies. We get builders.
Sparkies love it.
We get builders.
Yeah,
we get
Sparkies,
builders.
they're like, thank God. Because it saves them from taking a video or a photo.
Exactly right. And we get builders who call us up and be like, don't know what you do, don't know who you are. Got your number from the Sparky because it was on a different job and said it was great. I'm calling you, I need it.
Yeah.
Doesn't even know what it is.
Yeah.
But it's just that word that's gone through that. And he's like, I can find efficiencies with my subbies to make it quicker and more efficient. Awesome, let's do it.
It's a fucking sick product. Yeah. That's why I wanted you to hear.
It looks cool. It looks really cool.
It looks sick.
That's what it's cool. If it looks good, it must be great.
I mean, I'll show you. We'll show him the 10-level model.
Yeah, we'll show you one of our
cool.
biggest models, and it looks amazing. It's a full scale building, and you're like, I've got all the information in this building in one little thing.
One place. Yeah. Simple. It's like, what happened on level 3? Like, I don't know. Let's check. What happened on level 7? I don't know. We'll have a look.
That's the core of the business.
Yeah.
Are there any like little offshoots that you've sort of come up with? It's helpful for as well for anyone in particular, or
obviously at the start it was very visual. Obviously with the LiDAR and the point cloud conversation. I don't know if you're familiar with point clouds at all.
Yep. No, I am. Yeah.
Awesome. So we're obviously capturing point clouds, and our point clouds are almost going to waste throughout our process.
Yep.
So we were like, how can we better use those more efficiently? So now we've sort of opened or sort of branched into got a design arm basically that sits adjacent to our quality assurance arm.
Yep.
And we can go and model existing conditions, any of that sort of stuff, so you can understand your space better.
Yeah.
So, like, I think it was 2 weeks ago, Mark went down to Tasmania, basically grabbed a 4-level building. We had the 3D virtual model, which is the imagery, but then also pulled all the guts out of the point cloud, dropped it into Revit, and rebuilt the actual building in Revit. That was because the builder was actually local in Victoria and was trying to build something down there, and there was no existing plans. So they were like, how are we going to fucking design this? We don't know what's there.
Yep.
So let's get all that info, let's model it, and let's just give it to the architect and go, here's the box, you just design inside that box now. All the services are modeled, everything's there.
That's so necessary as well.
And all in a short period of time too, so that you can have this stuff ready to go. And that's the biggest problem with starting a project, is getting, everything organised.
Yep.
And we can do it quickly. You can have all the information right then and there. And then for the architect alone, they actually can be on site.
Yep.
While they're working on designing the model, so they can do it remotely.
Yeah.
Because technically they're kind of there, they can walk through it.
What's brilliant about it, especially with existing structures, because the thing I've struggled with most, especially when I was in construction doing residential stuff, is that they just measure it, exactly what you're saying. They measure it out and they just sort of do this design, and then the poor engineer gets given this fucking drawing and he's barely been on site. There's nothing he doesn't know what's going on, and he just starts designing shit. It's going to work.
Yeah.
I always knew, because I knew I could save a lot of money. I was like, all right, we'll price the job as it is. And then when it got through to construction, I was like, all right, engineer, this is what we're fucking doing, mate.
Yeah.
And once you strip everything apart to a degree, I could even see it before it was even done. You just got to go to site, really. And you're like, all right, we're going to do this, this, and this, move this around. That's going to work there. And he's like, oh, yeah, that's not a fucking bad idea. I was like, yeah, sweet. And then you save 15 grand a steel or bullshit, useless things like that.
We've had engineers actually design the project without going to the site. They're literally just using our 3D model.
Yeah.
So they sit there, the fire engineer sits in his office and just goes, oh yeah, shit, there is a sprinkler there, there's a hose reel there. Yeah, cool, that'll do. I'll just remodel it. Bang, there's a floor plan. Here you go. Here's your engineering.
Yeah.
So there's no site visits. So people are just doing everything remotely. So you're saving that time and creating that efficiency in your travels
100%.
as well.
And it saves someone getting a fucking tape measure out and putting it against the wall and hope for the best.
Yeah, exactly.
The
Mate,
wall's
I had a cadet in the office today. He tried to use a tape measure. I was like, what the fuck is that? Use this thing or what? I can't imagine architects are too skilled in that process either. They're just like, I don't know, it's 500? Sure, man.
X2R, what's the future looking for for you guys? What are you doing? You going to anything changing up? Anything up ahead?
Great question. It's a great question.
I mean, there's some integration conversations going on. There's
that too. But the fun thing about doing this is we get to explore all the technology that there is.
Yeah.
And I spoke about this a while ago, but the VR headset, you can kind of dictate where the market's going to go, and technology is very slow to come into construction, but eventually, we're working currently on a way where you could visually see through your phone behind the walls.
Yep.
So as you enter a home, you can just pull out your phone and you can almost have an X-ray, of what's behind it.
Yeah.
And I think that's really cool, and that will bleed into the VR goggles. So even I was floating around the idea today, electricians, when they go to fit off, they could wear the goggles and see where all their cables are, and it could automatically tell them what heights every switch has got to be at, where they're located within that space, and simply go cut. I know it's there, pull, toggle in and out. If they're missing something, I know it's definitely there, so toggle back on and get it. So you just that would be awesome. But then the crazy thing was everyone would be walking around site with these goggles on and probably
I was going to say, that's
games.
terrifying.
yeah.
But it's fucking sweet.
Well, we've seen there's a lot of prototypes out there, but we did a test on a site, and I mean it's not ready.
Yeah.
But I think it looks pretty good for a start.
Wait, was that a test with the VR? Or with the phone?
That was with the
phone.
Yeah.
So just AR?
But it's sort of built, it'd overlap into the same thing.
Yeah.
Essentially, they're one and the same.
But it's cool, the phone stick, because you can sort of...
Yeah.
You can sort of actually get a bit of perspective about where stuff is. Shit, actually, the pipe's over there. Oh, yeah, there it is. With the headset on, I reckon you'd be
So how does the phone locate where you are?
You've got to set your parameters. You set your parameter in the space.
You've got a waypoint guidance, which everything's pinned to, and then everything runs off of that.
Yep.
So ultimately, you go in, you scan the point there, you take a measurement, just captures everything in the right perspective, and then you just walk around and you just literally do this sort of stuff.
Yeah, and it calibrates it accordingly so you can actually see what's going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, the technology is cool.
That is titties.
Yeah. If you could streamline it, integrate it, make it simple, I think there's definitely good use cases for it. In terms of construction, I mean, it would be a gimmick at the beginning, but then I'd see it kind of work better, especially for the end consumer too. Direct to client, they now have on their phone, they can see behind the walls. If they want to,
that's valid. That's what we're like. Ultimately, the end goal for us is to go straight to the consumer at the end of the day.
Yep.
If someone's building your house, you've got to build a building in your house. They're either using us already, or you go to them and be like, guys, I want this information for later in the piece. Got a great story about our mate Steve, who almost
hit a gas
line. Went to install a shelf, and he was like, "I'm just going to check
floating shelf," and he's like, "I'll just check the tour first to make sure there's nothing right where I've marked."
Yeah,
and right where he marked was gas line.
So if he hadn't checked, he would have just been like straight through. So it's just simple stuff. And if everybody has access, like I'd love it for my house. I'm sure you would as well.
I already miss it. I told you about my garage story of drilling holes in the wall to put a shelf up. So.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's the big thing for us, is being able to create that level of understanding of everybody's sort of assets at the end of the day.
Like with your design, so you were saying you had like a little design wing over here you were sort of getting into. Do you think you would get to a certain point where you would, like, I don't know, it's probably already exists now, but like running through for a client that's getting a design done on their house and they run, like the architect creates a model based on what they're doing and like you could use your product, VR goggles on, walk through. I assume that already exists, yeah? Am I?
Yeah, it is. It's similar.
I've seen the guy, like the projector guys.
You see that?
That's fucking all right.
Yeah,
but like
cool.
now VR is, and like if you use things like Unreal Engine, where the modelling is wicked.
Yeah, we do have an alliance with a guy who's doing a lot of that CGI through the Unreal Engine.
Yeah.
So we can basically pick up all of our point cloud data and everything else and dump it on him, and then he can render that space in essence. So it's an interesting one, and we probably shouldn't give too much away, but it's more into the real estate, commercial real estate sort of zone.
Yeah, yeah.
Where they can basically have something they can walk through before the construction's even started. So tenanting is
100%.
accelerated by 12, 18 weeks ultimately. So straight out of the gate, they're like, yeah, love it, let's do it. Let's book it in. When it's done, we're in.
Yeah,
there's so many different facets to how that can work.
You probably don't have enough time to research it because I'm sure you're busy.
No.
What
do fuck all?
But there's great technology there. It's just how, and you got to think this too. Like, does it make sense?
Yes.
Like, would someone want this, and is it worth doing? And there's certain things, but there's places to go. Like, this is not just going to be it. It will roll on.
100%, and it will become the norm.
Yes.
What you're saying, it already exists.
Yeah.
Like, we already do it, but it's shit.
Still
just
better.
take photos. Now we're just doing it better to improve everyone's experience.
But it's relevant to like what you're saying about building inspections in different states. Like, it's obviously, it's a standard up there, but in Victoria, it's a bit of like not really something that people do ultimately. Like, you want to sort of create that. It's a standard perception in people's brain. Like, yeah, of course, we're doing that. Like, we want that ultimately.
Yeah.
So drive that conversation.
Like, I've had many conversations. I had a conversation with I inspected a house, and the vendor was an old builder. And I'm talking, he was fucking 91. Wow. He was deaf as shit.
Wow.
But he was a fucking legend, mate.
Yeah.
He's like, oh. He's sitting in his chair. He's like, I used to be a builder. And I was like,
one of those.
Bullshit, mate. No, you're not a builder. You're too skinny to be a builder, mate. He goes, I'm 91, mate. And I was just like, oh, yeah. Got talking to him. He's like, what do you do, mate? And I'm like, I'm a building inspector. He goes, what do you inspect? I'm like, well, you know how your friends, some of your friends, have no idea about the house they're buying, and they probably told you to come to the house and check it out. He goes, oh, yeah, done that a few times. He goes, well, there's people now that do it full time because, unfortunately, there's a lot of shit houses out there, even when they're 7 years old, that have major structural defects, and now people can buy a house without having to be too concerned about what's going on. Yeah. And I'm like, they can make an informed decision. Yeah. That's it. He's like, oh, that's a really good idea. It's been going it's been going for like 30 years.
Yeah. He was 60 back then, so everybody still didn't know.
He was retired still.
It comes down to awareness. It's letting people know it's available.
Yeah.
And it's just better.
It's transparency at the end of the day. It's transparency, protecting everybody throughout the chain. Like, good builders will get a building inspection. Good builders will use Xtool at the end of the day. Yeah. That's what it's all about.
Because there's nothing to hide.
And there's a lot of them.
Yes.
There is. A lot of the builders who work for are really good.
Yes.
And it's like...
I think most of the builders who work for are really good.
And they're like... They probably don't need it, but they'll still do it anyway because they're just methodic, and we do it across the board. Yeah. That's what we love to see too. Like, they go, cool, we do it here, we'll do it everywhere.
Which is great. It sets a standard. This is best practice.
Best practice. 100%.
And anyone below that, you're just going with the flow, which is fine. It's okay. Yeah. But this is fucking ideal.
Well, building changes. All the tools have changed since I started plumbing. I mean, we used to use oxyacetylene to weld. Now you crimp in like 10 seconds.
Yeah.
I used to drag those bottles up and down ladders. I used to do all this sort of heavy lifting. And now you're telling me there's a $5,000 tool, which sounds expensive until you use it, and you're like, oh, this is just easy. I just It's like you're playing Legos. You know? Yeah. And then you kind of go, well, anyone can do this because welding's a skill. But then you're like, no, someone's got to go actually know how they're doing the rest of it. So you've still got more work to do.
It's improving the process, but you still need to know what you're talking about and understand the whole game to be good at it.
And that's the beauty, because we've both been in construction, we know what to look for going through a building site and finding key areas. And like we focus a lot on the wet rooms, like the bathrooms are big for us. So we make sure that those bathrooms are covered head to toe. And we also cover everywhere else as well, because you don't know what could go wrong. You know, there's a space where nothing's there. That's the problem. You know, it's never where you think it's going to be. Or, you know, you probably know your building. You're like, oh, I don't know about this. This is going to cause me some issues later. But it turns out it's somewhere else. And you're like, oh, God. I was like,
didn't see that.
Didn't see that one coming because I was too worried about this. You know, but that ended up being fine. And that's where this really makes sense to me.
Well, I think back to your point before, I think even the builders that are like, you know, building two townies and stuff like that, who don't have the procedures and processes in place, using this helps to elevate like up to the commercial builders as well in that regard. Being able to be like, all right, cool, I've got a centralized set of information and data I can use. It's something that like is really exciting, I think, more so because you see a lot of these guys and like, shit, like these guys are using it. You're like, yeah, man. And they're like, I got it done in my house too. Good. They're like, yeah, good.
And what's great about it too is from their perspective is that that's they package that together and they give it to the client when they finish the house. This is the holy grail of as-builts for a residential property. It's like, this is everything where it's at. And the homeowner, whenever they do modifications, bits and pieces like that, or can I take this out, can I do that? You can do it, like they could send it to the engineer, and the engineer can go, oh, yeah, mate, there's no lintel here, that's fine, there's no load bearing point there, just by visually looking at it. That's fucking unreal.
And we've had builders do that before. They send it to their engineers to confirm stuff.
Yeah, there's heaps of stuff, you know. Like, I mean, working in the commercial space, and I shouldn't say this, but like a lot of the times, like, oh, there's a couple of bars that are missing. You do slab inspections. And the RBS is like, oh, you're missing one here and here. If we go through at the end, they just send it to them the next day and go, mate, it was all done. Look, you can measure the thickness of the bar. There's a 12 mil.
You can see
it's a 12 mil bar.
Yeah, they'd have to revisit the site.
To that point.
And that's the big thing, is like being able to be confident in that. Like, there was so many times in the commercial space where I'd have to like, you delay a pour because you got a structural engineer coming out at 7:30 in the morning. And those guys don't get up at 7:30. They get in at 9. They're like, hey, please. And they're like, oh. And he's like, I'll be there soon. It's 8:45. You're like, bro, what the fuck?
You can send it to their phone. They can look at it in bed and go, yeah,
you've got a concrete truck there and you've got concreters screaming. And if you could just pick up the thing and just go, here, look at this. And he's like, yeah, it's cool, pour it. You're like, done. He's in bed still. Like, yeah, no, that's fine. Go
Looks
for
good,
it.
Yeah. And buildings are built now not with like plans, they're built with technology. Like everyone 100%. Has an iPad or a laptop on site. Everyone has a phone. Everyone already uses it, and you can just have everything right then and there.
It's as if we're going from 2D plans to 3D models. We're in this transition period 100%. At the moment, and there's people like yourself that are building technologies to help that transition process, and it's fucking awesome.
We want to make it easy though as well. You know what I mean? Like, the thing is, like BIM models and stuff have been around for like 30 years.
Correct.
And they're huge overseas. But in Australia, we almost have like this hesitation to go down that technology path because some of the builders are like, mate, I don't need it. I've built houses for years. I'm fine. Like I use the same guy. He's good.
And they might not until they do need it. Exactly. And they're like, oh, this is actually good to have.
But I think the thing is we were very diligent in choosing what tool we were going to choose because we want it to be, not to be rude, we want it to be easy enough for the plumber to use.
Exactly
right. It needs to be that simple.
They need a helping hand.
It shouldn't just be the structural engineer who can actually understand what the hell's going on here. It should be like, oh yeah, fuck, there it is. Cool, that's easy.
If we can look after the special needs trades on site and they can understand it, we're fucking sweet.
Exactly. Make it easy for everyone. We're inclusive.
That's fine.
We're all about it.
That's fine.
We're not about equality, but we're inclusive.
We're inclusive. Let's not go too far.
That's fucking sick.
No, it's good. It's exciting. But I think the future will end up being a BIM. I think people have BIM plans, and I think it'll be genius to be able to go through a house, see it fully built, start stripping away parts. I'm going to work on just the steel. It will show you the steel, everything in there in 3D. So you'll be able to have a better idea of what it's going to look like. I mean, I've seen instances before where they put the steel in and it's like, oh, we've put it too low, so now your garage height has to shrink. Where it's like you would be able to see that in a BIM model. Because you're not working off a 2D plan. You're working off a 3D plan, so you would know, hold on, that's not right. That's not where it should sit.
I think you're right, though. I think the design component is really well done. Like, there's a lot of clash detection and coordination that happens at the front end, and then people go out to site and they just do whatever the fuck they want.
They got 2D plans. So
all of a sudden, you're like, hold on, we designed the mech unit over there, and now it's over there, and now we've got to make all these changes to make it work. So there's a disconnect between the original design documentation and the as-built, because you get a Sparky or a plumber gives you a 2D as-built and they're like, yeah, there's a PowerPoint there. You're like, but where? Like, where is it on this wall? Like, what am I looking for?
What I can picture happening in the future, actually, is you could put on the VR goggles and you'd be like, I don't know, in a factory or something like that, and you could build the models. So obviously what you guys are doing, it's not a model, it's an actual image created into a model. So it's a real life.
It's all stitched.
Yep.
Correct, exactly right? And obviously with Unreal Engine and how that operates and how fucking awesome it is.
It's cool.
You can get to a certain point where you could there could be a certain stage of construction and you could zoom yourself in to a specific connection detail around a steel column that is there. It's behind 3 layers of fire check and all this other shit, and you can just be there and see what's going on if there are any issues that come up. And to that point, it's fucking awesome.
That's starting to come as well. There's a lot of that prototype stuff out in the market now where you can literally put on your Apple stuff and you can literally look up and you can see the BIM model. And it's the problem, I think that the issue that we've seen a lot is because we're trying to design everything, which is not really practical. There's a lot of steel members that are modeled. There's a lot of AC stuff. There's a lot of hydraulic pipes and things like that. But when you get down to wires and stuff, people aren't modeling that. It's not really practical ultimately.
Correct. Yep.
So there is a lot of stuff. And we saw, what was the one we saw the other day? There was one literally on Instagram, and this guy puts his Apple Vision on, and you can see, or you can toggle up and down the transparency, and you can just see the steel beam just coming across and laying on the slab next to it.
And then you integrate that's the BIM model in real life, but you integrate Unreal Engine, you'll actually see the whole building like that.
Yeah.
So I know what you're talking about. So if you get in a warehouse, you could essentially have your house that hasn't been built yet.
Yep.
Fully rendered, looking exactly the way it would look down to the finishes.
Yeah.
And you could change it, and you'd be like, actually, I don't like the color of this floor.
Yeah.
But then you can strip that away and see everything else around the house. So the builder could use it. The client will probably design from it. Yep. Or the architect, or there's so
you would just chuck on the goggles.
Yep. And see.
And you're all right, what's the paint color? Walls are going to be this.
Yep. Yeah.
Carpet's going to be this. No, we want fucking floorboards.
I think designing will be done that way.
Dude,
you walk into it and they go, I don't like that. Can you move this wall back? They're like, no worries. They'll just move the wall. Actually, no, that's too far. Can you move this over there? And then you've now shortened that period of time for design.
Yeah.
So from the idea of starting a project to finishing it, you could just drastically reduce it with technology.
Yeah, because the biggest problem, and you guys, I guarantee you're going to agree with me on this, is that most of us individuals in the industry, in trades, right, we are pretty good at seeing things before they're built.
Yeah.
We have this skill set where we can I can look at a plan and I'm like, all right, I know how high it's going to be, so I can feel it, and I can walk around the rooms. I'm like, all right, this is going to be this. These are going to be problems, blah, 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 blah. Or it's like, yeah, that's going to look fucking sweet.
Yeah.
You got no worries. But when you have a client who's just a novice individual, and there's people just don't even have that skill set of seeing visually in their mind, it's when it gets to the walls being stood up is when it's like,
that's what right. Yeah.
But then I'm like, just hang off. When the plaster goes on, they're like, oh, this is massive. I'm like, wait till the plaster's on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's going to shrink again.
That's so
and
true.
It does.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, now wait. It's like, oh, it's too small. Wait till the paint goes on.
Yeah. Oh, now
then it'll get bigger.
Yeah. That's so true. I think visualizing
it's
it.
It's exactly right. I mean, God, love it. But my wife is exactly the same. The amount of times that she's like, I don't understand what it's going to look like. I'm like, can't you just visualize the carpet color over there? You've got a swatch right here. And she's like, no, I don't get it. And I'm like, fair enough. You're not in the same realm. But I'm like, it's really simple here. But you're right. I think being able to relay that really effectively, we see it a lot even with our existing condition stuff.
Yeah.
We do a lot of work for architects who scan the existing stuff, and they'll go to their client and be like, see this wall back here? And they're looking at our model, and they're like, okay, that wall there is going to move out a little bit. And oh, yeah, I get it. Because I can actually see the wall.
Correct.
As opposed to being like, well, I don't understand. The wall's over there on the plan. What does that mean? What does this look like?
It doesn't mean anything. They just put their trust into it, and then they get to the back end, and that's why as builders we just get... Because we don't like variations, right? Variations fucking pain in the ass. We just want to fucking get the plans, build the job as quickly as possible, make money, you're happy, we got to do the next job.
It's made a lot easier when you know all the details that go through it. When the plans leave out certain items, and you've got to fill in the gaps, or the client's got to put their input in, slows the project down, no one gets a result, arguments happen. But if everything's laid out, they've agreed, you can see it, you can have your opinion too, hey, I don't think that's going to work.
Yeah.
And then it will just run smoothly.
Yeah, or if you've got to move walls or things because there's a clash or some sort of issue, and I know remodeling can be very expensive. Unreal Engine actually solves that problem somewhat, but you can just walk them through it. All right, chuck the goggles on. We've moved this wall in the bathroom.
Yep.
And they're like, all right, sweet. And then they walk in and they're like, oh, yeah, cool. And you can see like tile grout lines line up. Everything's in place. Got shower screens, bits and pieces like that. Obviously, at the start, it won't be super like crazy detail.
Yep.
But in the future, I can't agree more. That's definitely the way it's going to go, which is fucking sweet.
Yeah, and it's weird because all the technology is sort of consolidating to that one point where it's just going to be like all these bits come together and you're like, there it is.
Yeah.
Simple as that. Look at that.
And then what happens from there? Where do you go from there?
Oh, we get robots and they do everything.
robots still fly. Yeah.
And I'm like, what do you reckon? He's like, it looks good. You're like, sweet, build it.
Like, move this wall actually, and it just happens.
Yeah, push it.
Yeah. Just move it over. But yeah, that's it. Yeah, the technology's it's coming. It's on its way.
It is going to be fun too, and it's people like us that see problems and want to solve them in a particular way. Obviously, we build businesses around it and make money, which is completely fair and reasonable. But the end product is everyone gains, everyone wins, which is the whole point.
Yeah.
It's just someone's got to do it.
There's just more challenges involved with trying to bring something new into an industry that's kind of stuck. But then again, we find a lot of success with younger builders. They're already adapted to technology.
Yeah.
Like, we never had iPads as kids, but the kids these days are better on an iPad than I am with a phone.
Yeah, 100%.
And so you can imagine when they grow up, they're going to be like, hold on, a plan. How do you hold this? Or what do you do with these lines on a piece of paper?
100%.
Where they're going to be like, oh, everything's in 3D.
Man, when was the last time you saw an A1 plan or an
Oh,
A0
yeah.
plan on a
That's
site?
fucking bang on.
When was the last
No,
one?
you still see them. I
Really?
still see them.
Man,
Yeah,
I haven't seen one
they're
in
backed
years.
up and
Oh,
they're-
you
those
see
are
one,
the
and you're
old
like, what's
site
that?
guys.
That
Yeah.
can't be a thing. Like,
Because
get the iPads
I was
out.
at that transition, specific
Coffee
room on this
stains
hospital.
on them, and then ripped
Exactly right.
pages.
Somebody
and-
fucking wrote on it.
There's one page that's just completely destroyed because that's the one you have to always look at.
Yeah, and then you get to a certain point where it's like that's one of the sites went to TVs and they had like these big monitors, like touch screen shit, and you could like zoom in, then you could like screenshot it, and then you could email it to one of the boys like, this is the area, like fix this is the problem, blah blah blah.
What about like when you have to update the plans? They're going to print out a whole new set.
Oh, remember that?
So
Oh,
and then
I'm going off it.
you got off. Yeah, you got to get.
You got
new
opposite, or you have the
plans.
plan printer and there's like 5 people waiting, and like I'm just printing 70 documents.
So
here,
you've got your
just
old
wait.
plans, which you basically go, well, I'll just turf these out because I have a whole new set, and it might have just been one change, but you got a whole new set of plans.
But it's not just the builder; it's every subcontractor has to update their own plans, and it's just fucking
Well, then
chaos.
the
Someone's
sub
working off the old shit.
Somebody comes into the office
Oh.
and he's like, oh, you got revision H, one revision K, and you're like, oh, fuck, all right. Someone go down and print all these fuckers out again. Or they fall off the plans there, and you're like, who's picking that up? What am I going to do about that?
But going back to like what's like in the future, like we'll be able to go through stages and update, 3D models.
Yep.
And be able to build on that. So you've always got access to the latest stuff.
Yes.
And I think that's important. Like now with these plans, your revisions, they come in instantly. And you've got them all on your iPad. And it should be the same with your QA. Your QA should always be updated. Yeah. So, and that's
You
what
see stuff like Procore and stuff is doing that really well now, where they're like, they even have like you can overlay the drawings and all the changes, and they can highlight that sort of stuff, which is really
That
cool.
stuff's good.
Like, it's that next stage of that, and I think you're exactly right. Like the younger generation of builders, that's where we see a lot of success, is because they're way more motivated to be like, yeah, let's try it. Like, let's see what this is about. It's the older guys, and God love them, but they're like, mate, I've done it this way for 30 years.
Yeah.
I don't need to change.
And it does work for them. They're
and it does.
really good too.
Exactly
Yeah.
right. But some of these younger guys are like, mate, if it helps, let's try it. So it's cool to see that adoption.
What's the cost point for like if I had like 5 units in a row?
It varies. So we price on square meter, floor plan square meterage.
Yep.
So for a standard sort of 3-4 bedroom house, you're probably looking at about $1,200.
Oh,
And that's for hold it, and we're taking it for 12 months as well. So you've got access to that the entire time. You can distribute it as much as you want. You can share it with anybody. It's just a free for all, basically. We also give you access to our platform, which is just a centralized QA section.
Yep.
You can upload documents, upload photos, and you've got all your models and everything else there as well.
So it's a central hub, and it's for just notes. If you've got to add notes, hey, like this particular thing changed, or hey, we've got this QA document. Let's keep it all in one place rather than have one thing do that. We've got this on over there. That's in a folder. It's like, no, everything you need to know. So perfect for post handover. Post handover team. If you got the project management team uploading all their documentation to our portal, the post handover team just gets access and goes, cool. Everything I need to fix something here is in here.
Yep.
And if it's not, then they didn't put it in, and then they can go looking for it. But what you're trying to avoid is phone calls. Hey, do you know this? Or what happened to this? Where's this photo? If you can just avoid that, you've just cut so much time.
Yeah. Oh, and time's money.
Yeah.
Because it's a bloody fortune.
And we're not trying to compete with Procores of the world and things like that. We're trying to stand over there and be like, we're the quality process. You don't need to put all the rest of the stuff in there. Just anything that's relevant to the sort of the quality process at the gates, just put that in there and that's it. And just leave it there so, post-completion guys can walk in and be like, got the info. That's all. I don't need all the other rubbish. It's right here, the stuff that I need.
It would take one mistake to pay for it. $1,200
Yep.
is...
Who said it the other day?
Fuck
Someone
all.
said it the
Someone
other
said
day.
it,
One of the Sparkies said the other day, he goes, mate, had one problem, paid for itself straight away. It was like, best thing we ever did. Amazing.
And that's hard to see at the beginning, but I think the more people get used to it and use it and they have it, they'll see that it does. It's pretty much a cost-free exercise to some degree, because as soon as you solve that one problem, but you can't quantify it as well. So how many hours did you spend finding the issue, talking to people, figuring it out? It might not be physical money, but it's time.
It sounds like an insurance policy, really.
Yeah, that you can actually use instead
We
of
We
just...
pay it for years,
Yeah, we
and
pay
then
for
we use
years.
it one time and they don't pay it out. Like, At
Exactly.
least with this, you pay for it one time, and then
we'll
it
pay
pays
you
off,
out. We'll
pays
pay you
off.
out. It's
Yeah,
all good.
Exactly right.
Yeah, you already got paid out. You've got all the information that you paid for.
That's what we used to say. We're like, it's visual insurance.
Yeah,
That's what
visual
it is.
insurance.
Yeah.
Visual insurance for construction.
And
You
that,
guys are trying to change the culture of the industry.
Yeah.
I'm also trying to change the culture of the
Exactly
industry.
right.
It's pretty fucking hard to change
It's
the culture of millions of people.
yeah.
But it can occur, and especially when something
Yeah.
is great, like the product you guys have, and you just slowly implement the process,
Yeah.
and people hear about it, and the case studies, and they did this, and they did that, and you're like, well, fuck, and it just becomes the norm.
Yeah.
And then
Then it's what's next.
That's it.
Yeah,
What's
yeah.
next?
Yeah.
AI, robots.
Yeah,
Robots.
But anyway, we'll fucking get to that when we get to it. At the moment, we're all good.
That's all, 100%.
Thanks for having us on.
No worries, guys. Well, I appreciate you guys coming in.
Yeah.
Of course.
Driving over from, where'd you guys come from?
Greensboro way.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not too
Suburbs.
bad.
Yeah, it's not
That's
too
all right.
bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Luke.
Appreciate it.
Where can these guys find you?
Instagram,
Yes.
website.
xtour.com.au, so xtour.com.au, and then I think it's xtour3D on Instagram. We got LinkedIn. I think
All
we got just
socials.
about everything right now because social media is taking over. So there's a TikTok
We
account.
don't have a podcast, though, which we need to
Don't
get.
have a podcast, but
Yeah.
we'll think about it.
You're welcome to drive over and use the studio if you want.
We'll rent this one out. Yeah, no, it's good,
Sweet. Well, your product is fantastic. I really appreciate your time coming out. The beer's cold. We need some more ones, so we'll get some more after this. If this has been beneficial to anyone that's sort of watched this or seen this, please give it a share, like, subscribe, all those good things. And that's pretty much it. Hooroo.
Thanks.
Thank you, man.
Done.
Appreciate it.
Let's